Okay, I want to thank you all for coming today to listen to our panel on the U.S. Constitution. My name is Keith St. Clair. I teach political science here at Grand Rapids Community College, as do all of my colleagues here. On my far right, we have Gordon Vurusic. In the middle, Yen Bai, and closest to me, Heather Forrest. And this is the political science staff here at Grand Rapids Community College. And we are here today because this week is the anniversary of the signing of the U.S. Constitution back in 1787. And in recent years, GRCC and colleges across Michigan have dedicated a day to commemorate the U.S. Constitution, and this is our way of doing so. And so I thank all of you students for being here for this, and it is recorded for people on our college cable channel. And so after I get done posing my questions and the responses of the panel, I'll pass the mic around and we'll have a chance to hear from you as far as the questions you might have on our rights currently under the U.S. Constitution. So with that, I guess we'll go ahead and get started. And I guess the first, yes, you have a question.
I have one plug.
Oh, yes. Go ahead. Go ahead, take it.
Okay. I teach an American Constitutional Foundations course. It's a con law course. It's being offered in the winter semester. It's only offered once a year. It's called PS 250, American Constitutional Foundations. It's next semester on Monday and Wednesday from 1 to 2:30. It is up at Sneeden. Registration obviously has not opened for that yet. I should tell you it is an equal transfer over to Grand Valley for their PLS 206 class. I taught it over there, then I created it when I came here. So it's an equal transfer, and it is required for their education program over there. So you can pay a lot less money here and take the class and have it transferred over. It's an excellent class. First half is about the institutions and the Supreme Court. The entire second half of the semester is all about civil liberties and rights. So if you're interested and you need humanities credit, I think for macro, it'll qualify. So.
Okay, thanks for that, Heather. First question I have is about President Barack Obama. When he was a candidate and ran for office, he was very critical of the previous 8 years under President George Walker Bush. And he made much during his campaign of the idea that the United States shouldn't have to choose, or need not have to choose, between our security and our liberty. And yet, upon becoming president, some have been critical that not much has changed as far as the policies of this administration and the previous Bush administration with regards to certain rights under the Constitution. And I'm just wondering what you think, our panel, as far as do we have to choose between our security and our liberty, and how do you interpret the choice that has been made so far? Gordon, why don't we start with you?
As far as I recall, the first executive order that President Obama signed was the executive order to close the prison in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. But this has never happened. There has been a lot of debate in the United States where these terrorists, that are, some of them are terrorists, some of them are something else, but there has been a lot of debate in the United States where to put these prisoners, and many communities, including communities here in Michigan, didn't like the prospect of these people coming to the United States. One of the things would have been that by being on the territory of the United States, they would receive the judicial and constitutional protections that people who live in the United States have. And another thing was, another reason why this debate was going on for so long was that a lot of people expressed security concerns, right? Security concerns, however, were deflected by saying, well, the United States still imprisons a lot of very dangerous people who are violent murderers, so how come that the United States wouldn't be able to imprison the people who are terrorists? But I think perhaps a major concern has been that these people who are, some of them are really dangerous terrorists, but what kind of judicial treatment they would receive here, and whether the United States would be able to really try them and pass verdict against them because of some of the methods that had been used to provide evidence against these people. Another thing that President Obama wanted to do was to bring Sheikh Ali Mohammed, who is the mastermind of the September 11th. He wanted to bring him to New York City to be tried before New York court, by which President Obama wanted to prove that the United States judicial system is capable of dealing with some dangerous people in a way that does not circumvent the American judicial system and does not circumvent the civil rights and liberties that are granted by the U.S. Constitution. However, this particular intended move was met by high level of resistance, both in New York City and elsewhere. So the administration basically backed away from that. I think thinking in terms of whether the current administration has changed anything in terms of rights and liberties, and I'm talking here especially in the context of people who have been arrested by the United States and other American allies and put in terrorist prison, is basically also the conversation between the administration and the government and the voters, right, the constituents, right. I think the real question is how ready the United States, how ready majority of Americans is basically to grant people who are being accused of terrorist acts, to grant them the same rights and protections that people who live here in the United States have. And I think that this is a debate that will continue.
Well, it's
continue
not a
for some
debate
time.
anymore, though.
I'm sorry?
It's not a debate anymore. The Supreme Court has made a decision on that. In Boumediene versus Bush in 2009, I think was Boumediene, the Supreme Court, no, it was 2008 because it was before President Bush left office. The Supreme Court ruled that any individual being held under U.S. jurisdiction anywhere in the world is entitled to the protection under the Constitution, not just people on American soil. So that it gave constitutional rights to not only the people in the United States, but people in Guantanamo Bay and detained anywhere in the world, which is why then they started having people detained in other countries under the jurisdiction of other countries, so that the investigations or the interrogations of those individuals wouldn't be subject to the jurisdiction of the United States and therefore not given due process rights. I agree that Americans are having a hard time giving terrorists or individuals that are taking actions against the United States or are accused of that. Americans are having a hard time giving them constitutional rights, but it's not a choice. It's just not a choice. You were all probably given a Constitution. The Fifth Amendment to the Constitution, ratified in 1791, says that no person shall be denied life, liberty, or property without due process of law. No person. Doesn't say no citizen. It says no person. Due process rights are afforded to anyone who is a human being. We don't get to choose who that is. We just don't get to choose. So.
Yeah, I think that's the case. I think all persons, not just the citizens, all persons should be protected under the law. That means if you are on this soil, under the American flag, you are entitled to the same protection. Although those so-called illegal combatants are not fully protected, are they fully protected? Do they have the right to lawyers,
Yes, they do.
or are they less protected?
I don't know. They were given the right to an attorney in 2004 with Hamdi versus Rumsfeld, and then Congress passed a law repealing their right to habeas corpus appeals. And Hamdan v. Rumsfeld came in 2006, and they allowed the appeals that had already started before they had been repealed. So if somebody had appealed their detention to challenge it, a habeas corpus appeal is challenging the constitutionality of one's incarceration. So individuals in Guantanamo Bay had filed an appeal to challenge the constitutionality of detaining them, could take that one step further. While Congress has the power to prevent or stop habeas corpus appeals simply by passing a law. And they did that and the president signed it. Of course, President Bush signed it. And so individuals then could not challenge their incarceration. Hamdan's appeals process had already started. And the Supreme Court heard his case and said his appeal can continue because it had started before habeas corpus was repealed. And in 2004, in Hamdi versus Rumsfeld, the Supreme Court, 2004, said that persons who are being held under U.S. jurisdiction are absolutely entitled to a right to counsel. So that was way back in 2004. But it took until 2008 for them to fully admit that anyone held under U.S. Under U.S. jurisdiction would be given all those rights. Absolutely. They're entitled to all the rights in the Bill of Rights.
Yes, but the rights are not practiced because these people are tried before military commissions. They're not tried before the jury.
That's another
So Very true.
Yeah.
Yes.
Not a civil court, but military court.
Yes, and
You might want to expand on that. So we have the federal court system where we traditionally try cases. We have a system for trying people for treason. It's in the Constitution. It's punishable by death, which is actually what Scalia argued in Hamdan versus Rumsfeld. But under the Bush administration, they created the Military Court Commission that allowed individuals to be tried in secret and held accountable. You could get warrants based on the affirmation, I believe, of just one investigator that they suspected a terrorist, this individual to be a terrorist. And so, yeah, the military courts are different.
yes, but
Is the Obama administration different than the Bush administration with regards to this? I mean, you say, I mean, I hear what you're saying. I mean, and I'm not disagreeing with you that I too see under the Constitution that people do have these rights, but at the same time, it seems that people are still being denied their rights, despite the fact of a change of administration.
How?
I
When?
think one difference
Well,
is that
do we not
Obama-
still have indefinite detention, for example?
Well, sure, because it's a crime to allow people free who might further attack us, right?
Well, I would suggest that don't these people are deserving of a trial and have any of these trials. I mean, it's been since 9/11, over 10 years, and some of these people still being held, basically without charge, without right of review of their cases, without trial. Does anyone disagree with that?
no, I don't.
Would you say then that President Obama has at least made the choice that there is a trade-off between security and our ideals?
Oh, yeah. If these two values are in clash, I would prefer security first, because without security, how can you have liberties? I mean, which one comes first? But the danger is, I mean, under this broad umbrella of security, you might abuse your power. You can put anybody into this category without due process.
Right. I think it was Ben Franklin that said those who would give up liberty for security deserve neither liberty or security.
And would get
are you
neither.
Asking, but are you asking personal opinion, or?
I am asking your opinion. I mean, I am personally interested in each of your opinion, yes. With hoping the audience
It's
is.
not a good thing versus evil. It's all good. I mean, good versus good. When they're in conflict, you have to pick one. So that's the trade-off. So, yeah, if we're threatened or in danger by the terrorists,
With all due respect,
security,
the
yeah.
people who are left in Guantanamo Bay, when Obama did take office, you know, I don't have numbers to back me up because I didn't quite know that we were going to be addressing this particular issue. We did see that, in fact, there were many people from Guantanamo Bay who were released. Many, and, you know, 50, 60 people who were released.
Yes.
And
Well, more than that. I mean, over half of them. I think there were
okay.
maybe 800 at
And
one time, and
do
over
we-
half of them
Do
have
we
been
know
released.
if any of those people went out and then joined?
Some of
any
them did.
Yes, one-third,
Oh,
around
oh,
one-third of them.
really?
Yeah.
Some of them did.
Really? So some actually ended up hurting us again.
Right. If they weren't terrorists when we captured them, they certainly were after the years of being held in Guantanamo Bay.
And holding them in Guantanamo Bay turned them into a terrorist.
Some have suggested, yeah. And you
No,
think
but
not?
my argument was not that these people should have been given the rights, as the same rights as the people who live in the United States. And I never mentioned citizens. I always mentioned the people who live in the United States, because I agree with you. American Constitution does grant me, as a non-citizen, the same rights as the citizens. I just said that this is a debate that American society still has, because it hasn't reconciled itself with the
Right.
notion that people who are accused of terrorism should have the same protections as the people who are not terrorists, regardless of what the Supreme Court says. This is the debate that is going on, that I think most Americans who care about these things have within themselves and with the other people that they have conversations with. I'm not arguing one way or the other that they should have or should not have the right. Whether Obama changed anything, no, he hasn't significantly changed anything. And I don't think it was his choice in the sense that this is, I think that he didn't change because the backlash from the society was so strong that he had to change his mind, which I think is justified by democracy. Yeah. Although I do not always
And-
agree that democracy is the best thing, but he changed his mind. His administration changed his mind because of the strong backlash from society.
Could we say the rights of the minority succumbing to the will of the majority in this instance?
Yes, and I'm not always comfortable with that, but this time it happened.
I guess maybe to a more broader point. Oh, would you like to add something,
Well,
Heather?
I just wanted to clarify, just because some people say that detaining them in Guantanamo Bay turns them into terrorists, doesn't make it so.
No, but
Okay.
I
There
think
you
it's
go.
appropriate to ask
Absolutely
the question.
not.
It's like a Fox News.
I guess to do a more
Trade.
broader point, I mean, would you say that we have fewer civil liberties since September 11th? We just so recently celebrated that anniversary and all that that meant. Or do you think we have the same? Or do we have fewer civil liberties since September
I
11th?
don't think so. I think we have the same amount of liberties and freedom as we used to have. What the government has done so far is have broadened its authority to get involved into people's privacy. I think that's a change, because the government can go to the library and check what kind of books you borrow. I mean, if you guys keep borrowing books about how to make C4, you are on the list.
Yeah, and here's the thing. The things that the federal government are now looking into under the Patriot Act, it's nothing new. I mean, it's nothing new. Library records were never confidential. Where you search on the internet has never been confidential. A lot of the things that the federal government is looking into have never been confidential. Albeit there are definitely some questionable clauses in the Patriot Act. I have not read it all. But certainly some of the approaches that are taken in the Patriot Act are not new. And they've been exercised by previous administrations.
I think we
Without a
also gained some new right, the interpretation by the Supreme Court of the Second Amendment. I mean, that's individual right to
Yes.
hold weapons.
Weapons.
That's Heller's case.
The Heller case, in
Yeah.
2008. They were on a roll in 2008, 2009.
2009.
In Chicago versus McDonald's in 2010, there was also the case about gun rights. In 2 years, the Supreme Court.
And that's
basically-
never done before
Yeah.
Obama.
That's 220 years of history
Mhm.
overturned. So do we have fewer rights? No.
Yeah, I'm not from here. I'm from Croatia. So.
Not
where
used
I'm
to these.
where I'm coming from, and in the whole of Europe, cameras are all over the place, right? So
Really?
you go to London, and then the whole city of London, England, is covered by cameras. Even small European cities in Austria, idyllic mountain resorts, the streets are covered by cameras. So the government, the police sees almost everything. I haven't checked the toilets yet. I don't know whether they have cameras there or not.
Nice.
But I think that this fear of government intervention into the people's private business is I think is part of American culture as much as apple pie is. And I don't know how much apple pie is a part of American culture anymore. I don't know, do you guys eat the apple pie? Or?
I have,
I like apple pie.
I have just a question.
No, let me finish.
Sorry.
And this trust of government, I mean, why are we afraid of Patriot Act? Well, we are afraid of Patriot Act because we do not trust the government that will use it judiciously, right? Mm-hmm. We think that the government will abuse it. And in Europe, nobody complains about cameras on every corner of the street. Perhaps Europeans do not care, or Europeans are more cynical about it, or Europeans think perhaps that their government will use it more judicially, they trust it more. So I think the notion about the tyranny is a relational notion, how much we trust or distrust the government in a particular culture rather than immediately assume that intrusion of government or the possibility that or tools that government has will immediately intrude in our lives, right? I think the level of that fear is different here than where I'm coming from. So I think perhaps the level of trust into government is a bit higher where I'm coming from here. And I think that's justified partly by the fact that European governments are more generous in providing welfare services to people than this is the case here, right? You can be unemployed for 20 years and still live pretty decent life, right? In many European countries, right? So the government is, as many Europeans said, it's a nanny state, right? It cares about you. The Swedes even call their government mother. So mother, and mothers like you. Most mothers like you no matter what you do. Right? So the assumption is that the government will like you and take care of you no matter what to do. Right? But the political history of the United States created this political cultural context in which distrust of government is part of the culture, and therefore the fear that the government will abuse its tools, which would supposedly lead to some level, some degree of tyranny.
Do you want to hear the stories in China? I'm from China.
Sure.
Well, if government in his country is like mother, I mean, government in China is like father. I mean, you know, it's very strict. Yeah, so it's very much detached from the society's civil life. You know, it's not like before. People got freedom, more freedom than before. People can do pretty much anything they want. But if the government wants to destroy your life, it's very easy. There's no due process. There's no procedural democracy. There's no whatever, you know, you're so used to this system in here. But you know, in there, it's totally different story, totally different game. By the way, next semester, I'm going to teach Asian politics, PS 215.